Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a fantasy movie review, and today I'll be having a look at the 1983 movie Hearts and Armour. So Hearts and Armour was actually a TV mini-series that was re-edited to make a film, but you don't really notice that, I think, if you're watching the film version of it. So this was actually, originally an Italian series, and then was re-edited and sort of touched up basically for sort of American and European audiences as a movie. Now, the nearest film you can compare this to is, I think, Excalibur, and that's actually a fair comparison because it does take. It's a very similar theme or feel to Excalibur. It's kind of this very sort of like gritty, adult orientated, but not too fantasy based sort of knights in armour, but pick basically. The story mainly focuses on a conflict between the Christians and the Moors, and it kind of is the basic story of the film version. Now, as I say, there may be some greater plot in the series version of this, but I'm going to talk about as the edit of the film is a kind of a love story between sort of members of the opposing forces. So you have a male sort of Christian sort of knight. I think he's called Orlando, and he basically falls for the kind of the Moor princess played by Tanya Roberts. And on the flip side, you've got a female knight. And I suppose that's really the film's main protagonist, Bradamante, her name is. She's kind of like the only female knight, and I'll come on to her again in just a little bit. And likewise, she's a Christian, and she falls for the brother of Tanya Roberts' character, who's the sort of like the sort of captain or the sort of prince or whatever of the Moor army. So they're both on opposing sides, really, and they're both kind of that's the theme of this film. So it's kind of a very much tries to be like a romantic sort of medieval film. I guess the main character I would say is probably Bradamante, and she's this she's basically this woman who is given this sort of like almost magical sort of suit of armor that kind of sort of a lot of people don't realize, it's a woman fighting and things like that. And she sort of ends up defending Tanya Roberts' character early in the film in an infamous shot where you see Tanya Roberts' beaver. So she sort of ends up defending her against some sort of like some bandits really, and then has her as a prisoner. She meets up with the other Christian knights, and because she's a woman, she has to sort of feel like she has to prove herself. And this really starts the sort of the romance between Tanya Roberts' character and Orlando, who is sort of the leader of the Christian knights. At the same time, Bradamante is really sort of given a vision of the person she's destined to fall in love with, and he's wearing this sort of this particular sort of like more armor, although she doesn't actually see who it is. But she's sort of told by this kind of wizard who gives her this sort of magical armor or whatever that this is the person that she's going to be falling in love with or whatever. And she just knows it's going to be this Moor, but other than that, she doesn't know who it is. Eventually, they sort of run across the Tanya Roberts' brother. I think his name's Ruggiero or something like that. And she sort of recognises the armour and realises that's him. And they capture him, the Christians sort of capture him, and she sort of then sort of sees him and basically just instantly sort of falls in love with him. And the rest of the Christians kind of want to kill him, but she sort of tries to sort of defend him basically. Then basically you kind of have this developing relationship between these sort of four characters. They kind of, for one reason or another, they're sort of the Moors are escape, and obviously the sort of Christians get sort of going after them and things like that. The Moors, I guess, are probably more sort of looked at as the the kind of the bad guys. Although there's a line in the film where we sort of come across a sort of a decimated village, and someone asks, was it Moors or Christians? And one of the responses is, it doesn't matter. They're pretty much both as bad as each other. Although we kind of we're kind of, although there's not true good guys and bad guys in this, you would sort of, the way it's portrayed is the Christian forces are kind of more the good guys, if you like. They're sort of, the way their armour is a lot more sort of heroic looking, whilst the sort of the Moors have this sort of group of like mercenaries that are kind of seem to be a lot more brutal and have like that, you know, skulls on their armour and things like that. So they're obviously going to be the bad guys. And the end of the film basically is a sort of a conflict between almost the champions of the Christian forces and the champions of the Moor forces. So I'm not going to go too much into the plot, because chances are you've obviously seen this film if you're watching this review. I can't imagine people thinking, oh, check out, wonder what Hearts and Armour is about. So I'm not going to go too much into the plot other than what I've just said. So what do I think about the actual film then? So here's my main issue with this film. Is Bradamante is, I think, absolutely unlikable as a sort of as the protagonist. I think the way she's portrayed is purely from a selfish point of view. She's brought up as a Christian, but she's basically almost betraying the side that she's on for a bloke she hasn't actually naturally fallen in love with. This is just someone she's told, you're going to fall in love with him. And so she just does it basically, and as a viewer, I just don't buy her sort of motivations, because she sort of aids in his, you know, his sort of like escape ultimately. And I think her character is quite unlikable in the film version of this. As I say, I haven't seen the original series, so that may be different. But really, she doesn't always, to me, doesn't seem all that heroic. She has a sort of heroic moment at the beginning where she sort of saves Tanya Roberts' character, and she sort of wins a couple of like sort of pissing battles between her fellow Christians. But other than that, really, she doesn't do anything that I would say is the way she's regarded as this like amazing sort of warrior. So to me, she's quite unlikable, and I just wanted her to fail while I was watching this film. I'll be quite honest with you. To me, she was obviously meant to be this sort of strong woman, but to me, she just sounded like, you know, oh, she's going to drop everything because someone told her this is the guy that she falls in love with. And that annoys me. I think the romance between Orlando and Tanya Roberts' character is a little bit more, you can buy into it a little bit more, because it does seem a little bit more organic, and Orlando still isn't sort of giving up his beliefs and his values to sort of go and chase, you know, to really ultimately sort of go against what he's been fighting for all this time. So I kind of preferred that sort of for the romantic. So I think this film is a little bit too bogged down in the sort of romantic side of stuff. It's obviously meant to be a little bit of a soapy story. I quite like the sort of surrounding the sort of supporting knights. They all have a fair amount of screen time, and you kind of get to know their characters. And everyone's got this sort of very, very distinctive armour as well, which kind of helps. So we see, we know who these guys are, even with their armour, because their armour is all very, very different. And so the kind of the Moors have these sort of like this kind of group of mercenaries, and once again they're kind of giving a little. They've all got their own sort of individual armours. We kind of get to know they're not as well developed as the Christian side. Apart from Ruggiero and Tanya Roberts' characters, but there is one who kind of gets a little bit more development, who's this kind of like seemingly sort of a little bit of a crazy one who takes a bit of a fancy to Tanya Roberts himself, and his kind of like this sort of bird armour and stuff like that. The actual fighting, I have to say, is pretty decent. I think the costumes are fantastic. Like I said, it's very, very reminiscent of Excalibur. It's the armour and the kind of the way that the battles are shot, I think, is very, very similar to the Excalibur. Not quite as obviously as high a budget or maybe not quite as flashy, but you know, it's a fair comparison, I would say. And the battles are all quite exciting. And what's good about it, it doesn't completely focus on the main characters. We do get quite a lot of screen time from the supporting characters, and we see their sort of battles. The sort of final fight which I think it's between 8, the sort of the 4 on each side, basically. You know, is pretty decent, and everyone kind of beforehand gets their sort of like their preparation shots and things like that. The music is really good. I really enjoyed the music out of it. I really like this film. Apart from, for me, the sort of Bradamante character, they obviously think she's kind of like people. This is a character where people can get behind. I completely didn't like her, and I'll be quite happy if she was killed off, because she's just her motivations are completely selfish, and I think very misjudged. But she's made out that we should be rooting for her, but I just can't do it. I just didn't like her. So I'm gonna give this movie an 8 out of 10. Let me know what you think. Did you share my opinions on Bradamante, I have to say? And how did you feel it compares to Excalibur? Leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.